Good evening, teachers, respected seniors, and colleagues. Today we will talking about malignant liver tumors, mainly hepatoblastoma. In 1898, missing the first case report of hepatoblastoma was published. He reports a case of teratoma hepatis in a 6-week-old boy who died of respiratory problems. Autopsy showed a large tumor that occupied the lower half of the right liver lobe. Cyst, cartilaginous, and bony deposits were seen as venous tumor infiltration. Therefore, tumor was described as a teratoma with tissue representative of three embryonic cell layers. In 1962, Willis introduced a term hepatoblastoma for this type of tumor that he defined as an embryonic tumor that contained hepatic epithelial parenchyma. At that time, hepatoblastoma usually was not distinguished from hepatocellular carcinoma. In 1967, Ishak and Glunz, uh, through the work of morphologic criteria, were defined for hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma that were refined in the decennia that followed. In 1975, Axebly published a landmark paper that has been cited in most reviews dealing with liver tumors in children. With the introduction of cisplatin-based chemotherapy regimen in the 1980s, overall survival of hepatoblastoma increased from 35 to 70% and has increased further to 80% in the most recent trials. Although our sophistication with chemotherapy and anti-angiogenic regimens for both hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma continues to evolve, the primary advantage of chemotherapy has been the in a new adjuvant setting to shrink the tumor and enable surgical resection. Although pediatric hepatocellular carcinoma is more likely to respond to chemotherapy than in its adult counterpart, most hepatocellular carcinoma remains largely chemo-resistant, and treatment efforts often focus on slowing tumor progression with the newest anti-angiogenic agents. Complete surgical excision remains the cornerstone for cure in both hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma, as evidenced by the recent improvements in survival achieved with complete hysterectomy and liver transplant. Now come to the diagnosis. Most liver tumors present with a or pediatrician. In in the youngest children, infant or toddler, the most common malignant tumor is hepatoblastoma, which presents as an asymptomatic right upper quadrant or epigastric abdominal mass. Some children may have fatigue, fever, pain, anorexia, and weight loss. Rarely, hepatoblastoma may present with abdominal pain and hemorrhage after post-traumatic or spontaneous rupture of a previously occult tumor. Hepatocellular carcinoma and hepatic sarcomas are more common in older children and are more likely to present in advanced stage. Non-specific symptoms of inanition or respiratory failure may appear insidiously. As the cancer grows, the pain in one may progress to shoulder and back pain and become more pronounced. The child may develop progressive anorexia, vomiting, and appear thin and sickly. Tumor growth may compress or affect the normal hepatic architecture, causing ascites, secondary to the occlusion of portal and hepatic veins, gastrointestinal bleeding or splenomegalia from the portal hypertension of portal vein occlusion, or jaundice, scleral icterus, pruritus from obstruction of the biliary tree. Symptoms of biliary obstruction are most commonly seen with the biliary rhabdomyosarcoma. Now, uh, for the differential diagnosis of the liver tumors, a differential diagnosis of the pediatric liver includes malignant tumors, benign tumors, and other masses. For many of other masses listed in the table showed in the next slide, the key to the diagnosis might lie in the underlying medical condition. For example, one might expect to see a bacterial hepatic abscess in a child with chronic granulomatous disease, a fatty deposit in the liver, of a child with hyperlipidemia, or perhaps in an inspissated bile lake in child with biliary atresia, as shown in figure in next slide. Organizing intrahepatic hematoma should be suspected in any child with a history of hepatic trauma or in newborn with sepsis or coagulopathy, especially if there is history of perinatal birth trauma or hemodynamic collapse requiring cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Congenital liver cysts are rare and represent a spectrum ranging from large simple cyst, intrahepatic colloidal cyst, or ciliated hepatic foregut cyst. Acquired cyst might be due to a bacterial, hydatid, or amoebic abscess. A simple asymptomatic congenital liver cyst may be safely observed. If infectious or large and symptomatic cyst, drainage, marsupialization, or excision may be needed to relieve pain and prevent the risk of rupture. Recent literature suggests the risk of squamous cell carcinoma arising later in life in those congenital hepatic cysts with a ciliated epithelial lining, and therefore these should probably be excised rather than observed or marsupialized. These are the main categories in which the liver tumors can be classified: malignant, mainly hepatoblastoma, hepatocellular carcinoma, the sarcomas, and the metastatic uh, tumors from other region; benign tumor, including mesenchymal hematoma, biliary adenoma, focal nodular hyperplasia, infantile hemangioma, hepatic adenonodular regenerative hyperplasia, teratoma, inflammatory myofibrotic tumor, and other masses arising from vascular origin, acquired or congenital cyst, parasite cysts, hematoma, or fatty liver. Neoplastic liver masses, including benign and malignant tumors, account for about 1 to 1.5% of all lymphatic tumors, means 1 in 10 lakh. Age of presentation is often the key to differential diagnosis, like shown in next slide. In newborn, the most common tumor is infantile hepatic hemangioma. Infantile hepatic hemangioma is to be distinguished from the much rare Kaposiform hemangioepithelioma that may present in the extremities, chest, or retroperitoneum. Capaciform hemangioepithelioma of the retroperitoneum may present with Kasabek-Merritt phenomenon and progress to obstruct the porta hepatis. Hepatoblastoma is the most common diagnosed between 6 months to 3 years of the age. Benign tumor in toddler are mesenchymal hematoma and focal nodular hyperplasia. Hepatocellular carcinoma and hepatic adenoma are seen in older children. The other tumors, as listed in table, are rare. Although the most common benign tumor often shows classical distinguishing features on computed tomography, imaging is not usually a reliable way to differentiate benign from the malignant tumor. This picture shows the multiple small bacterial abscess in the child with chronic granulomatous disease. In this inspissated bile lake in the child with biliary atresia and cholangitis, is organizing hematoma in the newborn with sepsis and coagulopathy, infarction of right lobe liver and hepatic abscess with air fluid levels in the premature baby with necrotizing enterocolitis, acquired cyst in amoebic abscess in a toddler with fever, and these are the age presentation most commonly in liver tumor of childhood. Infant and toddler, the malignant tumors are hepatoblastoma, rhabdoid tumor, and malignant germ cell, while benign are hemangioma, ocular origin, mesenchymal hematoma, or teratoma. In school age and adolescence, there can be hepatocellular, including transitional cell tumor 23%, sarcoma 7%, while benign are focal nodular hyperplasia 3% and hepatic adenoma only 1%. For laboratory evaluation, routine laboratory investigation should be include complete blood test. Many children with a malignant liver tumor will exhibit some degree of anemia and thrombocytopenia. In hepatoblastoma, the thrombocytopenia is thought to be caused by tumor production of hematopoietin, interleukin 6, and interleukin 1b. Liver panels like albumin, transaminase, glutamyl transferase, alkaline phosphatase, total and conjugated bilirubin, more the lactate dehydrogenase, the LDH, AFP alpha fetoprotein, the beta hCG, ferritin, carcinoembryonic antigen, catecholamines, and viral titers like hepatitis A, B, and C, or Epstein-Barr virus. The most important tumor marker is the serum AFB. AFB will be elevated in 90% with hepatoblastoma and 50% children in hepatocellular carcinoma. Although AFP is elevated in most children with hepatoblastoma, increased AFP is not a pathognomonic for malignant liver tumor. Hepatoblastomas that fails to express AFB at diagnosis means the level of AFB is less than 100 nanogram per 100 ml are biologically more aggressive with a worse prognosis. Rarely, the opposite has been reported a case of well defined fetal type favorable prognosis HB that did not express AFP. AFP level must be interpreted with caution in neonate because AFP is a major protein produced in fetal liver and thus produced in high amount in normal newborn. AFP may be especially high in neonates after hepatic damage or degeneration of the liver parenchyma. The half-life of AFP is 5 to 7 days and the level falls throughout the first several months of life so that by the age of 1 year, the AFP should be less than 10 gram per ml. Moreover, there are many reports of benign tumors, especially infantile hemangioma and mesenchymal hematoma, in children presenting with high AFP levels. The other tumor markers used to differentiate the liver tumors from the other are beta hCG, which is mainly elevated in germ cell tumor, ferritin, which is elevated in hepatocellular carcinoma and metastatic neuroblastoma, the CEA elevated in hepatocellular carcinoma and metastatic colorectal cancers, the LDH elevated in many malignant tumors, catecholamine elevated in metastatic neuroblastoma, hepatitis C, which is found in hepatocellular carcinoma, Epstein-Barr virus titer in lymphoproliferative disease and lymphomas. The radiological appearance of the most common benign and malignant tumors shown in the figures. Radiological appearance of most of the hepatic benign and malignant neoplastic masses of the liver in children. The A is mesenchymal hematomas, a complex multicystic mass with septi. B showing focal nodular hyperplasia with arrow pointing on classic stellate central skull. The C is defining diffuse infantile hemangioma with multiple nodules showing peripheral contrast enhancement. The D is pretext to hepatoblastoma, for which we'll talk earlier. What is the pretext? And E is pretext for plus P, hepatocellular carcinoma with the involvement of main portal veins. And the last F is metastatic tumor, two nodules of the metastatic colorectal carcinoma in right anterior and posterior sections. Hepatoblastoma may invade a hepatic vein, disseminated to lungs, and penetrated liver capsule to reach contiguous tissues. An initial ultrasound will identify the liver as an organ of origin. Additional testing, usually CECT scan, is aimed to determine the extent of involvement of parenchyma, presence or absence of microvascular compression, displacement, and invasion. Metastatic liver tumor compared with the primary malignant liver tumor have been reported to be more hypoechoic and on ultrasonography and has less vessel invasion and contrast enhancement on abdominal. In hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma, abdominal CCT and magnetic resonance imaging outlines the anatomic extent of tumor, clarify its relationship to central venous structures, and evaluate for multicentricity. Now, what is pretext? The radiographic appearance of the tumor at the time of diagnosis is used to assign the tumor pre-treatment extent of tumor, that is pretext. Radiographic appearance of the tumor after preoperative or neoadjuvant chemotherapy has been called post-text, means post-treatment extent of tumor. The chest CT scan is essential for part of the initial radiographic evaluation to rule out the metastatic pulmonary disease. In children with hepatoblastoma, about 20% with metastatic disease in the lungs. In hepatocellular carcinoma, the number of children who present with the advanced disease is quite high, and pulmonary metastasis at diagnosis have been reported as high as 50% in some series. Now, this is the how we can classify the pretext. If we will first distribute the liver in four sections, if only one section is contiguous, that it is pretext first. If it is in two segments or sectors, it is pretext 2. In three or more segments, it is uh, pretext 3. And no contiguous section is tumor free, means the whole liver is contiguous with the tumor, it is pretext 4. In addition, any group may have involvement of caudate uh, lobe of liver, which is uh, first, vena cava in growth, all the three hepatic veins, extrahepatic extension, metastasis, or portal vein ingrowth, portal bifurcation. Now, malignant tumor mainly are hepatoblastoma, hepatocellular carcinoma, and other, which are not very much common. Malignant tumors of the liver, after neuroblastoma and Wilms tumor, primary tumors of the liver are the third most common intra-abdominal neoplasm in children. Hepatoblastoma is the frequent, most liver tumor in children in Western countries, whereas in Asia and Africa, hepatocellular carcinoma occur more frequently than hepatoblastoma, probably as a consequence of higher prevalence of hepatitis B infection on those continents. Other less common malignant pediatric tumors are listed in table shown in next slides. These are the associated syndromes with liver tumors, mainly the familial adenomatous polyposis, Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, Lee-Fraumeni syndrome, trisomy 18, other trisomies, glycogen storage disease type 1 to 4, hereditary tyrosinemia, Alagille syndrome, progressive familial intrahepatic cholestasis, neurofibromatosis, ataxia telangiectasia, hepatocellular carcinoma, and Fanconi anemia. Come to the topic hepatoblastoma. Hepatoblastoma is a type of liver cancer that usually does not spread outside the liver. This is affect this affects the children younger than 3 years. Epidemiology, biology, and genetic hepatoblastoma account for 80% of malignant liver tumors in children. In United States, the incidence of hepatoblastoma has increased from zero point 0.6 to 1.2 cases per million population in last 2 decades. It comprises 1% of all pediatric malignancy and affects most young children between 6 months to 3 years old. But cases in neonates and school-age children are also seen. Researchers of University of Minnesota are conducting a large epidemiology study termed the HOPE study, called Hepatoblastoma Origin and Pediatric Epidemiology. A leading theory is that the increased incidence is due to growing prevalence of premature birth are and very low weight babies. Both prematurity and very low birth weight has been associated with an increased risk of hepatoblastoma. No association has yet been found between prematurity as a risk factor and the age at which the tumor diagnosis and eventually made, or the histologic subtypes of the tumor. Unproven but postulated Environmental factors include occupational exposure of the father to metal such as welding, soldering fumes, petroleum products, and paints. The list of possible heterogenic exposures of the premature or very low birth baby in the neonatal care unit includes light, oxygen, irradiation, electromagnetic field, plasticizers, medications, and total parental nutrition. Hepatoblastoma is also associated with the fetal alcohol syndrome and hemihyperplasia, formerly termed hemihypertrophy. Hemihyperplasia is associated with an increased risk of embryonal tumor, primarily Wilms tumor, and the hepatoblastoma. Curiously, although there is clinical overlap between the hemihyperplasia and Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, the genetic abnormalities seen in hepatoblastoma patients with Beckwith-Wiedemann syndromes are not seen in those with hyperplasia. In addition to Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, a number of other genetic syndromes have been associated with the increased risk of hepatoblastoma, including familial adenomatous polyposis, trisomy 18, Lee-Framingham syndromes, other which have been shown in table. Familial case reports of hepatoblastoma and familial adenomatous polyposis is striking and suggests a role of pathogenesis of hepatoblastoma for chromosomes 5 and 11. Additional screening for cases in familial adenomatous polyposis kindred families in the recommend by the testing for germline mutation in the adenomatous polyposis APC tumor suppressor gene. Germline APC mutation are not commonly seen in children with sporadic hepatoblastoma. The association with Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome and hepatoblastoma is so strong that expert recommends that the children with Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome be screened with additional ultrasonography and AFP at regular interval until they reach the age of 7 years. The genetic abnormalities of hepatoblastoma with Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome is mapped to 11p15.15 locus and suggests the presence of tumor suppressor gene at this location. Additional biological markers may include the trisomy of 2, 18, 20, and translocation of Notch2 gene on chromosome 1. Upregulation of insulin like growth factor 2 may be mediated by overexpression of PLGA1 oncogene, transcriptional activator of 8q chromosome. On the one of the most provocative genetic finding has been the association between hepatoblastoma and mutation of beta catenin and the activation of WT oblique beta catenin signaling. Microarray analysis of WNT or beta catenin and MYC signaling has defined two tumor subclasses resembling this phase of liver development and characterized by the discriminating 16 gene signature. The highly proliferative tumor subclass showed gain of chromosomes 8 and 2 and upregulating the signaling. Histological subtypes of hepatoblastoma has also been characterized with different pattern of WNT and Notch pathway activation in DLK precursors. The author speculated the hepatoblastoma may arise from the proliferating bipotential precursor of WNT activation, most prevalent in embryonal and mixed histological subtypes of non-activation, more prevalent in differentiated pure fetal subtypes. In addition, deregulation of MACP, MAPK signaling pathway and anti-apoptotic signaling is preferentially upregulated in aggressive epithelial hepatoblastoma with a small cell undifferentiated component. These genes expression signals may provide prognostic and diagnostic marker, perhaps even therapeutic targets in the future. Other genetic markers that have been associated with the biological behavior, including multi-drug resistant gene and Hadhog pathway. Increased expression of multi-drug resistant gene is seen in response to chemotherapy in many childhood tumors, and this seen to be particular true in hepatoblastoma. Chemotherapy has been shown to induce overexpression of multi-drug resistant genes MDR1, MDR-associated protein MRP1, and lung-related protein. WHO tumor classification for hepatoblastoma is defined as malignant tumor with divergent pattern of differentiation ranging from cell resembling fetal epithelial hepatocytes to embryonal cell and differentiated tissue, including osteoid-like material, fibrous connective tissue, and striated muscle fiber. In fact, the morphology of hepatoblastoma seems to reflect distinctive phases of hepatogenesis, recapitulating cell linkage derived from the endoderm fated to become mature liver cells. The current histological based uh, classification, Harding cellular differentiation because of one subtype, microtrabecular, reflects a growth pattern rather than a distinct differentiation steps. The fetal subtype occurring in purely fetal and a so-called crowded fetal variant displays the highest level of differentiation. Pure fetal histology hepatoblastoma is associated with both a diploid DNA complement and low proliferative activity. About 20% of epithelial hepatoblastoma shows a mixed of fetal and less differentiated embryonal type cells with a more pronounced mitotic activity. A macrotrabecular subtypes, less than 5% of these tumor, reveals a growth pattern with large cell plates consisting either of fetal embryon or hepatocyte-like cells. The later variant, the macrotrabecular type 1, the MT1, is difficult to distinguish from hepatocellular carcinoma and may have unfavorable biology. Undifferentiated hepatoblastoma mostly occur as a small neoplasm not associated with the elevated serum AFP, which is also known as small cell undifferentiated hepatoblastoma. But variants with larger risk also occur. A large proportion of hepatoblastoma, about 45% when examined from the after chemotherapy, revealed a mixed epithelial and mesenchymal, which is called MEM phenotypes, called hepatoblastoma MEM. Osteoid-like bone tissue is common in mesenchymal component. The same epithelial component as found in wholly epithelial hepatoblastoma subtypes occur in variable expression. The relative proportion of components in hepatoblastoma mixed epithelial and mesenchymal phenotypes undergoes marked changes subsequently to chemotherapy. After exposure to chemotherapy, often the osteoid the histological dominates the histological pattern. A small proportion of HB mixed epithelial and mesenchymal phenotype exhibit unusual tissues such as glio and neuronal enteric or melanotic tissues. These tumors are termed HBMEM with teratoid features. It has to be emphasized that this term is descriptive and does not implies that these neoplasm are germ cell tumor. The prognostic significance of these histologic types and subtypes is currently under study in large trials. These are classification of hepatoblastoma, mainly the hepatoblastoma wholly epithelial type, purely fetal type, embryonal or mixed fetal and embryonal, microtubercular, trabecular, cell undifferentiated, that is SCU, hepatoblastoma mixed epithelial and mesenchymal type, which is HBMEM, with teratoid features, and hepatoblastoma not otherwise specified, HBNOS. So far, so far as the prognostic relevance has been worked out for the fetal subtypes, the favorable, and for HBSCU, which is unfavorable. An unfavorable histology of HBSCU is also present in cases where the SCU features is expressed in a focal pattern only. In addition to the lesions listed in last table, an increased number of variants of hepatoblastoma or lesion thought related to hepatoblastoma have been described, leading to concept of tumor families. Now, in brief, what is text staging risk of stratification? Risk of stratification determines treatment for hepatoblastoma in current multicentral group trials, as by COPL 1 group stratified hepatoblastoma into standard, which include pretext 1, 2, and 3, and high risk, which includes pretext 4, tumor anomalization factors, tumor phase to assess AFP level like less than 100 at the diagnosis. The child oncology group stratified hepatoblastoma into very low, which include pretext 1, 2, and well differentiated fetal histology, resected at diagnosis. Low pretext, low, which includes pretext 1, 2, non well differentiated fetal histology, also resected at diagnosis. And intermediate, which includes non metastatic pretext 2, 3, 4, unresected at diagnosis, which includes the other anomalization factors like BPE or SCU. And the last is high, which includes metastatic or AFP level less than 100 nanogram per 100 ml. Other stratification is by children hepatic tumor international collaboration based on four pretext group age, level of AFP, and pretext annotation factors stratified into very low, low, intermediate, and high. COG continues to use the traditional COG eval stage 1 to 4 and prognostic factors pure fetal and small cell undifferentiated histology and AFP less than 100 to assign risk group. Although COG does not currently use pretext to assign the risk group, it does use pretext to define surgical guidelines, where it determines whether or not a tumor should be resected at diagnosis. The timing of resection will determine the tumor stage for all non-metastatic tumors. In contrast, COPL use pretext diagnostic factor to define risk group. Pretext, as we discussed before, was devised by COPL first. The subsequent COPL trials, like COPL second, third, have used pretext as a tool to stratify treatment, define risk categories, and report outcome of hepatoblastoma. These are the same pretext 1, 2, 3 with other factors. Although the risk stratification scheme differs somewhat between the groups, three other major multicentric pediatric liver tumor study groups, which are the COG, others German pediatric oncology hematology, and the Japanese pediatric liver tumors, have also chosen to adopt pretext in their current future protocol. Although pretext has been found to have a slight tendency to overstage the patient, it is postulated to show good inter-observer agreement, the reproducibility. Pretext may also be used to monitor the effect of preoperative therapy when it is applied serially to assess the tumor response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy. This is the same, the COPL. The gross presentation of hepatoblastoma post chemotherapy is characterized by a firm and well delineated and sometimes multinodular mass with whitish fibrotic area and calcification. Histologically, the epithelial component ranges in their differentiation from a small cell undifferentiated, previously termed anaplastic phenotype, resembling other cellular blue tumors, to cells that are close to mature hepatocytes, the fetal phenotype. This is again how the COPL divide the pretext. First, it divided the liver in four quadrants. The left lobe of the liver, the left lobe of the liver divided into lateral and medial. The lateral part contained the second lobe, second segment, and third segment. The medial lobe contained the fourth segment, and the right lobe divided into anterior and posterior. The anterior contained the segment 4 and 8, and the posterior the fifth and seventh, sixth and seventh. Coinate segment 1, that is the caudate lobe, and when involved in shown in pretext with the annotation of C. This is the same, the pre-test staging. The post-stage staging, the stage is based on amount of tumor that remains after patients had surgery. Stage 1, if the tumor is removed wholly, there is no microscopic residual tumor seen. It is stage 1. If the tumor is removed wholly, but the microscopic residual tumor is there, it is stage 2. When one of the following is true, like the tumor cannot be removed by surgery, cancer can be seen without a microscope remain after surgery, and the cancer has spread to nearby lymph nodes, is stage 3. Stage 4, the cancer has spread to other part of the body. Recurrent childhood liver cancer is cancer that was once treated but has now come back, either in the liver or other part of the body. These are the other annotation factors which can include with pretext, like 1 plus c is defined as pretext 1 plus the caudate lobe is involved in tumor process. Other is veins, extrahepatic organs, metastasis, portal bifurcation, lymph nodes, rupture of tumor at diagnosis. Now the tumor treatment strategy, chemotherapy and surgery. In short, the chemotherapy contain mainly the two drugs, the cisplatin and doxorubicin, that is Prado. Surgery can be done by cryosurgery, partial hepatectomy if it is pretext 1 or 2, total hepatectomy if it is pretext 3 or more, and liver transplant, radiation therapy, and percutaneous intralesional ethanol injection. Treatment strategy, chemotherapy and surgery. The treatment of hepatoblastoma, complete surgical resection remains the cornerstone of curative therapy, but surgery alone cannot cure patient with present with advanced disease. More than half of the patient present with either an initial unresectable tumor or distant metastasis. In the early years, when these children were treated with surgery alone, there was a 30% relapse rate in those patients whose tumor could be completely resected. Evidence of hepatoblastoma is a chemo-sensitive tumor begins to accumulate in the early 70s when response was seen to a combination of cyclophosphamide, vincristine, 5-fluorouracil, actinomycin D, but not until the introduction of cisplatin and doxorubicin containing regimen in 1980s was there a major impact of chemotherapy on survival. 20 years later, still cisplatin is the main drug for the hepatoblastoma chemotherapy. In fact, the most recent study of standard risk hepatoblastoma by COPL-1, COPL-3, the treatment results with the cisplatin monotherapy were comparable to those achieved with cisplatin and doxorubicin combination theory chemotherapy, which is also known as PLADO. Chemotherapy may reduce the tumor volume, making the tumor resectable, and may lead to complete disappearance of lung metastasis. The tumor response rate to the present cisplatin containing chemotherapy regimens varies from 70 to 90% according to different series. Neoadjuvant means preoperative chemotherapy not only makes the tumor smaller and consequently more likely to completely resected, but also make them more solid, less prone to bleeding, and better demarcated from the remaining healthy liver parenchyma. Also, when chemotherapy is given as soon as possible after diagnosis, occurred micrometastases in the liver have no delay in treatment. No matter how small the primary tumor, Cyopel recommends preoperative chemotherapy in all patients, as shown in figure in next slide. This approach is hypothesized to increase the number of patients for whom complete surgical resection will be feasible, to reduce the surgical morbidity of the resection, and to provide more time for making definitive surgical plans, including liver transplantation when indicated. Because of large number of countries participated in CEOPL studies, the standardized of both sophisticated surgical approaches and supportive care measures have been difficult. Therefore, the use of pre-operative chemotherapy in every case has permitted patient from countries with limited resources to participate in these studies. This is the algorithm how we can use the pretext and go for the surgery or chemotherapy. If a patient is diagnosed infantile hemangioma, if it is infantile hemangioma, we should have to observe if asymptomatic, if no biopsy, on biopsy, if it is benign, treatment based on the tumor type of, and if in biopsy it comes hepatoblastoma and hepatocellular carcinoma, metastatic workup is done. If it is uh, other factors are positive, the new, as a rule, neoadjuvant therapy is given before surgery, while the protocol for COG is slightly different. They give the neoadjuvant chemotherapy after the pretext 3 and 4, while in pretext 1 and 2 they go for surgical resection and then adjuvant chemotherapy. Tumor can be resected by straightforward segmentectomy or lobectomy and are resected at diagnosis. Following these guidelines, approximately one third of of hepatoblastoma patient can successfully achieve a gross total resection of tumor at diagnosis, and among them, it is possible to identify some of the that require minimal or no chemotherapy. Although it has been debated, post-surgical complications do not appear to be more frequent with this approach in the modern era. The potential to reduce cumulative chemotherapy exposure with upfront resection in pretext 1 and 2, which is done in COG protocol, is important given the ability of hepatoblastoma to develop resistant to standard chemotherapy. Recent data of magnitude of AFP response actually suggests that the majority of chemotherapy tumor kills probably occurs in the first 2 cycles. This is another the how the trials, how the COG act on hepatoblastoma and the cytopel and other. Resection at diagnosis is recommended for the stage 1 and 2 when segmentectomy is facile. Non-extended lobectomy will predicted yield a complete resection, that is pretext 1 and 2 tumors with at least 1 centimeter of clear margin anticipated upon review of diagnostic radiographic imaging. Pretext post-text 3 tumors is a central tumor that may be best resected by mesohepatectomy in the hands of the experienced liver surgeons. Transplantation is preferred in any tumor that invade the vascular inflow post-text plus P or outflow post-text plus V, the venous counterpart. If the pretext and the post-text suggest the need for the major vascular reconstruction, which is sometimes called extreme resection, a resection performed in a patient who would otherwise meet criteria for liver transplantation or liver transplantation, a referral for transplantation evaluation is advisable. Accuracy of retext is moderate because the difficulty of differentiating tumor vessels compression from the vessels in growth with a slight tendency to overstage. Nevertheless, good inter-observer agreement has been reported and comprising pretext with post-text allow for an objective analysis of tumor response to chemotherapy. The predictive value of survival using pretext is excellent, and combining pretext with the traditional COG staging yields additional predictive value. This is the picture in A, the central hepatoblastoma involving left medial and right anterior section. In B, the resection is right and left tree segmentectomy would leave very little residual normal liver, which is shown is here. C is much of the liver can be saved by mesohepatectomy if the portal vessels are not encased and good margins can be obtained. If tumor encases or invades the portal vessels, complete hepatectomy and transplantation is recommended. And this the last is D, is a frozen section shows negative margins. The postoperative or adjuvant chemotherapy is currently recommended. Uh, there are some other protocols. We can use the C5V protocol, including cisplatin, 5-fluorouracil, and vincristine. And if the tumor upgrades, we can add the doxorubicin for intermediate risk, and will investigate new agents like irinotecan with upfront window therapy in high risk tumors. We can give the cisplatin monotherapy with Plado for standard risk and use super Plado for high risk. The current COPL 4 high risk study used in intensified platinum regimen. The recent GPOS trial, hepatoblastoma 94, used IPA, ifosfamide, cisplatin, doxorubicin. The Japanese trials used the CETA, the cisplatin, the adriamycin, doxorubicin for standard risk, and ITEC means ifosfamide, carboplatin, doxorubicin, ethacoside, plus hepatic artery chemoembolization for high risk patient. Irinotecan with or without doxorubicin has been used in both North America and Europe for patients with relapse. In term overall survival, the results of the different studies groups are generally comparable, projecting 3 years overall survival regardless of first therapeutic modality used. This is the COPL standardization, and after all this, we have to go for liver transplantation. As we all know, the liver transplantation started by Stargell, and the last treatment for the hepatoblastoma, while it is after pretest 1 or 2, the patient has to land on liver transplantation. The slides are at least 20 remaining, so I would like to conclude on this. One more thing, the new agents and tumor relapse, the new agents like the prognosis for patient with recurrent and progressive hepatoblastoma depends on the many factors, including site of occurrence, prior treatment, and individual patient consideration. It was recently shown that the patient who initially received only cisplatin, 5-fluorouracil, and vincristine cure may be possible with multi-drug relapse regimen, including doxorubicin. Surgical resection of pulmonary relapse is possible and has been reported to produce long-term cure, but does not carry a good prognosis, as resection of pulmonary metastasis lesion present at diagnosis that simply fail to complete resolve on chemotherapy. Thank you very much.
Gunjan,
Yes, ma'am.
uh, you have put a great effort for this detailed presentation, and
Thank you.
you should keep good health as you are coughing again and again. And we can do the same topic on liver transplantation next time,
Ji.
and you can take time to explain to us. And
Yes,
it
ma'am.
was a great
Definitely.
effort for this detailed presentation.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, Dr. Pramila, Priyanka, and Dr. Gurdat can ask any questions if they want.
नाइस प्रेजेंटेशन गुंजन.
Thank you, ma'am.
गुंजन, ये हिपैटेक्टमी और लोबेक्टमी में कोई अंतर होता है?
Lobectomy is just to remove a lobe, while the hepatectomy is not डिफाइन नहीं कर सकते केवल लोब आपने रिसेक्ट किया या सेगमेंट.
नहीं, आप कैसे डिफाइन करते हो राइट लोब एंड लेफ्ट लोब और राइट हेपेटिक सेगमेंट और लेफ्ट हेपेटिक सेगमेंट? ये कुछ अलग लाइनिंग का डिवीजन का कुछ होता है?
जो क्लासिफिकेशन है मैम प्रीटेक्स, उसके हिसाब अगर जो राइट लोब है उसमें कौन सेगमेंट इन्वॉल्व है, उसका 1 सेंटीमीटर मार्जिन लेते हुए पूरा रिसेक्ट करेंगे. अगर वो एक
ऐसा कब कहते हैं
लोब में आ
ये
रहा है
राइट
तो
लोबेक्टमी, लेफ्ट लोबेक्टमी? कुछ लाइन होता है इसमें?
राइट लोब और लेफ्ट लोब जो डिफाइंड है, राइट लोब कंसिस्ट ऑफ सेगमेंट 5 6 7 8, लेफ्ट लोब 2 3 and 4 जो कैंटिलीवर लाइन से डिवाइड होता है. और सेगमेंटेक्टमी होता है लेफ्ट लैटरल सेगमेंटेक्टमी इज लोब 2 and 3. राइट ट्राई सेगमेंटेक्टमी होता है सेगमेंट्स 4 5 6 7 8. और बेसिकली सेगमेंट रिमूवल और लोब रिमूवल में अंतर होता है। जनरली
मतलब अपन जो हेपेक्टेक्टमी कहते हैं वो अलग होता है और लोबेक्टमी अलग होता है।
हेपेटेक्टमी मैम कैन बी एनाटॉमिक रिसेक्शन, नॉन एनाटॉमिक रिसेक्शन।
हाँ तो वो ही मुझे बताओ ना, एनाटॉमिक कौन सा और नॉन एनाटॉमिक कौन सा।
मैम लोबेक्टमी तो होगा ये या तो राइट लोब और लेफ्ट लोब में से कोई एक को निकालेंगे, वो लोब्स के हिसाब से होगा। और सेगमेंटेक्टमी होता है डिपेंडिंग ऑन कौन सा सेगमेंट रिमूव किया है।
चलो पढ़ना है इसको एक बार।
हाँ
थैंक यू गुंजन।
थैंक यू मैम।